They were the brightest stars of Hollywood's golden age, loved on screen, but feared behind the scenes. What if I told you that behind the glamour, fame, and iconic roles, some of the biggest legends were also the cruelest? From vicious rivalries to cold-hearted manipulation, these stars didn't just play dramatic roles, they lived them. This isn't the Hollywood fairy tale you've heard before. Stay with us as we reveal the 20 most cruel stars of Hollywood's golden age. And trust me, number 1 will change how you see your favorite classic icons forever. Joan Crawford, the tyrannical matriarch. Behind the polished image of Hollywood glamour, Joan Crawford ruled with an iron fist. On screen, she was elegance personified, but behind closed doors she was feared by co-stars, directors, and tragically, her own children. The world saw a star, but her daughter Christina Crawford revealed a darker truth in her shocking memoir, Mommy Dearest, where she described Joan as abusive, controlling, and obsessed with perfection. Joan's cruelty wasn't limited to her family. On film sets, she was infamous for being demanding and impossible to please. Directors often dreaded working with her, as she insisted on controlling everything from lighting to costume choices. She didn't tolerate mistakes, and anyone who crossed her faced icy revenge. Co-stars recalled her cold stares and biting words, making even seasoned actors nervous in her presence. Her long-standing feud with Bette Davis became legendary. The two icons starred together in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, but the real drama was off-screen. Joan reportedly filled her pockets with weights during a scene where Bette had to drag her, causing physical pain. Bette once said, "The best time I ever had with Joan Crawford was when I pushed her down the stairs." Their rivalry was fueled by jealousy, pride, and a shared refusal to back down. Despite her cruelty, Joan maintained a flawless public image, always poised, always perfect. But beneath the designer gowns and red lipstick was a woman driven by insecurity and a relentless need for control. Her legacy is a reminder that in old Hollywood, the brightest stars often cast the darkest shadows. While Joan Crawford's cruelty came from control and image obsession, her greatest rival was no less fierce. If Joan was icy and calculated, Bette Davis was fiery and ruthless. Next, we dive into the life of a woman who never cared who she offended, as long as she got her way. Bette Davis, the Queen of Mean. Bette Davis wasn't just one of Hollywood's greatest actresses. She was also one of its most feared. Known for her sharp tongue, fierce independence, and refusal to play nice, Bette earned the nickname the Queen of Mean, both on and off the screen. She didn't care about being liked. She cared about being the best, and anyone who stood in her way quickly regretted it. Bette's career was filled with rivalries, but none as famous or as bitter as her feud with Joan Crawford. She openly insulted Joan in interviews, once saying she slept with every male star at MGM except Lassie. But Bette's cruelty wasn't limited to Joan. She was known to undermine co-stars, belittle directors, and fight studios for control over her roles. Her ambition made her a legend, but it also made her enemies everywhere she went. On set, Bette demanded absolute professionalism. On her terms, if she felt a fellow actor wasn't up to her standards, she'd make it known, often humiliating them in front of the crew. Directors learned quickly that Bette would challenge every decision, pushing for scenes to be done her way. Her talent was undeniable, but working with her was often described as a battle. Despite her reputation, Bette made no apologies. She once famously said, "I survived because I was tougher than anybody else." In a male-dominated industry, Bet refused to be submissive, but her strength often crossed the line into cruelty. Her story is a complex one, an icon of empowerment, but also a warning of how ambition without empathy can leave a trail of bitterness behind. If Joan Crawford and Betty Davis thrived on power and rivalry, Judy Garland's cruelty came from a much sadder place. Her story isn't just about fame. It's about how a broken soul can lash out at others when trapped by an industry that never let her breathe. Judy Garland, the tormented star. To the world, Judy Garland was the innocent girl from The Wizard of Oz, with a voice that could melt hearts. But behind the scenes, Judy's life was anything but magical. Controlled by MGM Studios from a young age, she was forced into a cycle of pills, pressure, and perfection. A toxic mix that turned her into both a victim and, at times, a source of pain for those around her. Judy was given amphetamines to keep her working, long hours and sleeping pills to bring her down at night. This brutal routine led to addiction, mood swings, and emotional instability. Co-stars and crew members often found themselves on the receiving end of her outbursts. While many sympathized with her struggles, working with Judy became unpredictable. She could be charming one moment and cruel the next. Her personal relationships suffered just as much. Judy married 5 times, and each relationship was marked by turmoil. Friends described her as loving but volatile, often pushing people away when she needed them most. She could break your heart and your spirit in the same breath, one close associate recalled. Her pain, fueled by years of exploitation, often spilled onto those who cared for her. In the end, Judy's story is one of tragedy. She wasn't cruel by nature, but by circumstance, shaped by an industry that valued her talent more than her well-being. Her death, at just 47 years old, was a grim reminder of what Hollywood's golden age could do to its brightest stars. Judy Garland's legacy is bittersweet. A woman whose voice enchanted millions, but whose demons left scars on everyone around her. While Judy's cruelty was born from suffering, others embraced their sharp edges with pride. Up next, we explore the wild and unapologetic life of Tallulah Bankhead, a woman who never cared who she offended, as long as she had the last word. Tallulah Bankhead, the unfiltered diva. If there was one actress who didn't care about Hollywood's rules or anyone's feelings, it was Tallulah Bankhead. Known as much for her outrageous behavior as her talent, Tallulah was sharp-tongued, scandalous, and proudly offensive. She spoke her mind without hesitation, no matter who was listening. In an era of carefully crafted images, Tallulah stood out by being unapologetically wild and often cruel. Tallulah's sharp wit could cut deeper than any blade. She was famous for her biting insults, once telling a fellow actress, "There's less to you than meets the eye." Directors and co-stars quickly learned that working with her meant enduring constant sarcasm and unpredictable moods. Her disregard for professionalism often made film sets chaotic. If she didn't like someone, she made sure everyone knew it. Her personal life was just as reckless. Tallulah was open about her drinking, drug use, and affairs, behaviors that were shocking at the time. But behind the party girl persona was someone who often used cruelty as a defense mechanism. She thrived on scandal and seemed to enjoy making others uncomfortable. Her barbed comments weren't always playful. They could humiliate and alienate those around her. Despite her destructive tendencies, Tallulah Bankhead became a legend, remembered not only for her performances, but for living life entirely on her own terms. "My heart is as pure as the driven slush," she once joked, perfectly summing up her chaotic charm. But her legacy also reminds us that being bold and unfiltered often came at the expense of kindness. While Tallulah Bankhead wore her cruelty like a badge of honor, others hid theirs behind a mask of elegance. For Olivia de Havilland, her icy demeanor and ruthless ambition weren't always visible. But those who knew her best understood just how far she would go to win. Olivia de Havilland, the feuding sister. To audiences, Olivia de Havilland was the picture of grace, best known for her role as the sweet and gentle Melanie in Gone with the Wind. But behind her soft-spoken image was a woman driven by fierce ambition and a reputation for being cold and calculating. Olivia didn't shout or scandalize. Her cruelty was quiet, measured, and often aimed at those closest to her. The most famous example was her bitter, lifelong feud with her sister, fellow actress Joan Fontaine. From childhood rivalry to competing for Oscars, their relationship was defined by jealousy and resentment. Olivia once refused to congratulate Joan when she won an Academy Award, a slight that cemented their estrangement. Joan later said, "I married first, won the Oscar before Olivia did, and if I die first, she'll undoubtedly be livid because I beat her to it." Olivia wasn't just ruthless with family. She also made waves in Hollywood by suing Warner Brothers in a landmark case to break free from her contract. While the lawsuit earned her respect, insiders described how her determination often crossed into arrogance. She was known to dismiss co-stars and avoid friendships within the industry, preferring to keep people at a distance. Despite her outward poise, Olivia de Havilland left behind a trail of frosty relationships and professional grudges. Her ambition made her a pioneer for actors' rights, but it also revealed a side of her that many found unforgiving. Olivia proved that cruelty didn't have to be loud. Sometimes it was the cold silence that hurt the most. If Olivia's cruelty was cold and quiet, her sister Joan Fontaine was just as calculating, but with a sweeter smile. Up next, we uncover how Joan mastered the art of subtle sabotage, turning sibling rivalry into one of Hollywood's most infamous battles. Joan Fontaine, the competitive sibling. While Joan Fontaine often played delicate, innocent characters on screen, those who knew her in real life told a very different story. Beneath her soft exterior was a woman just as ambitious and just as ruthless as her sister, Olivia de Havilland. Their legendary feud wasn't one-sided. Joan knew how to play the game, using charm and subtle manipulation to stay one step ahead. Joan was known for spreading quiet rumors behind closed doors, whispers that would damage reputations without ever pointing back to her. Industry insiders believed she took pleasure in undermining Olivia's success, especially when they competed for similar roles. When Joan won her Oscar before Olivia, she made sure everyone knew it, further fueling the fire between them. Her cruelty wasn't reserved for family. Joan's co-stars often described her as distant and self-serving. She would play the role of the sweet leading lady in public, but behind the scenes, she was strategic, always calculating how to stay in the spotlight. Joan was sugar on the outside, but steel underneath, a former colleague once remarked. Joan Fontaine lived most of her life estranged from Olivia, refusing to reconcile even as they grew older. She maintained her innocence in public, but those closest to the feud knew that Joan was just as responsible for keeping the rivalry alive. Her story is a reminder that sometimes cruelty doesn't come with shouting matches. It comes with quiet words, hidden motives, and a smile that hides the sharpest knives. While the de Havilland sisters fought their battles in whispers and cold shoulders, Marlene Dietrich ruled Hollywood with icy detachment and calculated charm. Next, we reveal how this glamorous icon kept everyone at arm's length and why no one dared to get too close. Marlene Dietrich, the Ice Queen of Hollywood. Marlene Dietrich was the epitome of cool sophistication. With her sharp cheekbones, smoky voice, and tailored suits, she redefined glamour in Hollywood's golden age. But behind that iconic style was a woman known for her emotional detachment and ruthless control. Dietrich wasn't interested in friendships. She was interested in power. And anyone who tried to get too close quickly felt the chill of her legendary coldness. On set, Dietrich ran her image like a military operation. She controlled every detail: lighting, camera angles, costumes, ensuring she was always captured perfectly. Directors and co-stars found her impossible to work with because she didn't trust anyone but herself. "I dress for the image, not for myself, not for the public, not for fashion, not for men," she once declared, showing just how calculated every move was. Her relationships were transactional. Marlene famously used her allure to manipulate powerful men and women in Hollywood and politics. While she was admired for her independence, many who knew her personally described her as cold, dismissive, and emotionally unavailable. Lovers were discarded when they no longer served a purpose, and friends were kept at a distance. Dietrich's cruelty wasn't loud or scandalous. It was the quiet, piercing kind. She mastered the art of making people feel small with a single glance or a cutting remark. Though she left behind a legacy of style and strength, those who stood in her shadow knew that, beneath the glamour, was a woman who valued control far more than compassion. While Marlene Dietrich's cruelty was hidden behind elegance, Katharine Hepburn didn't bother to hide hers at all. Known for her fierce independence and sharp tongue, Hepburn's confidence often crossed the line into arrogance, and she made sure everyone knew who was in charge. Katharine Hepburn, the arrogant icon. Katharine Hepburn is remembered as a trailblazer, an actress who defied Hollywood norms with her pantsuits, outspoken views, and refusal to play the typical starlet. But her legendary independence came with a sharp edge. Hepburn wasn't just confident. She was often blunt, dismissive, and unapologetically rude to those she deemed beneath her. On film sets, Hepburn had little patience for incompetence. She would openly criticize co-stars and directors if they didn't meet her high standards. Crew members described her as aloof and difficult, with one famously saying, "She didn't suffer fools." And in her eyes, most people were fools. While some admired her no-nonsense attitude, others saw it as pure arrogance. Her elitist views extended beyond the workplace. Hepburn moved in intellectual circles and made it clear that she preferred the company of scholars and artists over Hollywood peers. She often looked down on other actresses, dismissing them as decorations rather than serious performers. This attitude isolated her from much of the industry, but Hepburn didn't care. She thrived on being untouchable. Even in interviews, Katharine's sharp tongue was legendary. She would challenge reporters, mock questions she found stupid, and never pander to public expectations. While her strength inspired many, it also left a trail of bruised egos and strained relationships. Hepburn once said, "If you obey all the rules, you miss all the fun." But for those around her, that fun often came at their expense. While Katharine Hepburn's cruelty stemmed from pride, Ava Gardner's came from passion and a dangerous temper. Up next, we look at how one of Hollywood's most beautiful women became known for fiery outbursts, broken hearts, and a trail of destruction wherever she went. Ava Gardner, the self-destructive beauty. With her stunning looks and magnetic presence, Ava Gardner was hailed as one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood. But behind her enchanting smile was a storm of emotions that made her both irresistible and dangerous. Ava wasn't just passionate. She was volatile, known for her fiery temper, reckless behavior, and a sharp tongue that could cut anyone down in an instant. Ava's relationships were legendary and often disastrous. Her marriages to Mickey Rooney, Artie Shaw, and Frank Sinatra were filled with jealousy, fights, and public scandals. She once famously said, "I'm the world's greatest lover because I've had the world's greatest teachers." But love with Ava often meant surviving her unpredictable moods and explosive arguments. Her off-screen behavior mirrored her chaotic personal life. Ava was known for heavy drinking, wild parties, and confrontations with anyone who crossed her. Directors dreaded her unpredictability, as she could be charming one day and impossible the next. Co-stars learned to tread carefully, knowing that a careless comment could spark one of her infamous outbursts. Despite her destructive tendencies, Ava remained beloved by fans, but those who knew her intimately often bore the brunt of her cruelty. She lived fast, loved hard, and left a trail of broken hearts and bruised egos behind her. Ava Gardner's story is one of breathtaking beauty, shadowed by a temperament that made her as dangerous as she was dazzling. While Ava Gardner's cruelty burned hot and fast, others used charm as a weapon. Next, we step into the life of Lana Turner, a femme fatale whose seductive power and scandalous choices made her one of Hollywood's most dangerous women, both on and off the screen. Lana Turner, the femme fatale of real life. Lana Turner was the definition of a Hollywood femme fatale, both on screen and in real life. With her platinum blonde hair and seductive charm, she captured hearts everywhere she went. But Lana didn't just play dangerous women in movies. She lived it. Behind the glamorous facade was a woman who used her beauty as a weapon, leaving a trail of broken relationships, scandal, and tragedy. Lana was known for her manipulative charm, often entering relationships with powerful men who could advance her career. She had a string of high-profile romances and 7 marriages, each one ending in drama. Turner knew how to control those around her, using affection one moment and cold dismissal the next. A producer once said, "Lana could make you feel like the only man in the world, until she didn't need you anymore." Her most infamous scandal came in 1958, when her daughter killed Lana's abusive lover, gangster Johnny Stompanato, in what was ruled as self-defense. While Lana wept on the witness stand, many whispered that her choices and dangerous lifestyle had led to the tragedy. The incident only cemented her reputation as a woman whose life blurred the line between Hollywood fiction and dark reality. Despite the scandals, Lana maintained her status as a star, but those who knew her personally saw a different side. A woman who could be cold, calculating, and unbothered by the chaos she often caused. Lana Turner's beauty made her a legend, but it was her ability to manipulate those who loved her that earned her a place among Hollywood's most dangerously cruel icons. While Lana Turner's cruelty was wrapped in glamour, Veronica Lake hid hers behind a famous hairstyle and a mysterious gaze. But beneath the soft waves and sultry stare was a starlet whose bad attitude made her one of the most disliked women in Hollywood. Veronica Lake, the difficult starlet. With her signature peekaboo hairstyle and icy allure, Veronica Lake became one of the most recognizable faces of the 1940s. But behind the camera, Veronica was far from the elegant image she portrayed. Known for being difficult, moody, and downright rude, she quickly developed a reputation as one of Hollywood's most unmanageable actresses. Directors and co-stars dreaded working with her. Veronica was notorious for showing up late, ignoring direction, and treating fellow actors with open disdain. Actor Frederick March, after starring alongside her, called working with Veronica an experience I wouldn't repeat for anything. Her arrogance and lack of professionalism turned film sets into battlegrounds, where patience wore thin and tempers flared. Veronica's behavior wasn't just confined to work. Off-set, she was known for being aloof and dismissive, often alienating those who tried to befriend her. Her rising fame only fueled her ego, and soon Hollywood grew tired of accommodating her attitude. Studios began offering her fewer roles, and her career started to decline, something she blamed on everyone but herself. By the time she was in her 30s, Veronica's star had faded. Struggling with alcoholism and financial troubles, she eventually ended up working as a cocktail waitress, far from the heights of her stardom. Her fall from grace was seen by many as a result of her own cruelty and arrogance. Veronica Lake's story is a reminder that talent and beauty can only take you so far when you make enemies everywhere you go. While Veronica Lake's downfall came from her bad attitude, Gloria Swanson stayed on top by controlling everyone around her. Up next, we uncover how this silent film legend used ambition, manipulation, and scandal to get exactly what she wanted. Gloria Swanson, the ambitious manipulator. In the era of silent films, Gloria Swanson wasn't just a star, she was royalty. Known for her extravagant lifestyle and commanding presence, Gloria mastered the art of staying relevant in a rapidly changing industry. But behind her dazzling gowns and sophisticated image was a woman driven by relentless ambition, and she didn't care who she stepped on to get ahead. Gloria was infamous for her power plays on set. She demanded creative control over her films, often overruling directors and rewriting scenes to ensure she was always the center of attention. Crew members described her as impossible to please, with one saying, "Working for Gloria meant knowing your place, and it was always beneath her." She believed she was above criticism, and anyone who challenged her authority was quickly replaced. Her personal life was equally calculated. Gloria engaged in high-profile affairs, not for love, but to secure her position in Hollywood's elite circles. Her relationship with Joseph P. Kennedy, father of future President John F. Kennedy, was as much about business as it was romance. Kennedy financed her films, and Gloria made sure to leverage every connection for her benefit. Even as talkies replaced silent films and many stars faded away, Gloria's manipulative instincts kept her in the public eye. She carefully crafted her comeback in Sunset Boulevard, playing a character eerily similar to herself, a fading star clinging to past glory. The role was iconic, but those who knew her saw how closely it mirrored her real life. Gloria Swanson's legacy is one of brilliance mixed with cold ambition. She wasn't content with being a star. She wanted control, influence, and power. And if that meant using people, cutting ties, or fueling scandals, so be it. For Gloria, Hollywood was a game, and she played to win. While Gloria Swanson manipulated with elegance, Mae West bulldozed her way through Hollywood with boldness and controversy. Up next, we reveal how this queen of innuendo turned provocation into power and why her unapologetic ego made her one of the most divisive figures in film history. Mae West, the provocative powerhouse. Mae West wasn't just a Hollywood star, she was a force of nature. Known for her sharp wit, sultry voice, and endless double entendres, Mae thrived on pushing boundaries. But behind her playful persona was a woman driven by ego, control, and a refusal to let anyone steal her spotlight. If you crossed Mae West, you didn't just get a clever insult, you got cut out of the picture entirely. May was famous for writing her own scripts, crafting roles where she was always the smartest, sexiest person in the room. But working with her was no laughing matter. Co-stars quickly realized that May had no patience for anyone who threatened her dominance. If a scene partner got too many laughs or too much attention, May would rewrite the script or have their part reduced. She didn't like to share the stage or the screen, one actor recalled. Her battles weren't limited to Hollywood. May's provocative content led to legal fights with censors. And while she wore these controversies like badges of honor, she also used them to fuel her image as untouchable. Behind closed doors, she was known to dismiss those she deemed beneath her, whether it was a low-level crew member or a rival actress. May once said, "I never loved another person the way I loved myself." It was a joke, but also a truth. Her unapologetic self-interest made her a trailblazer, but it also left her isolated. Mae West's legacy is filled with groundbreaking moments, but those who worked with her knew that behind the humor was a woman who ruled her world with an iron will and little concern for anyone else. While Mae West wielded her ego like a weapon, Clara Bow fought a different battle, one where cruelty wasn't about ambition, but survival. Next, we explore how Hollywood's original It Girl turned her pain into self-destruction, lashing out at a world that never gave her a chance to heal. Clara Bow, the troubled flapper. In the roaring 20s, Clara Bow was America's sweetheart, the carefree It Girl who embodied youth, freedom, and fun. But behind her playful smile and flapper dresses was a deeply troubled woman scarred by a traumatic past. Clara's rise to fame was fast, but so was her fall, fueled by emotional instability, scandals, and moments of cruelty born from fear and mistrust. Clara grew up in poverty and abuse, carrying those wounds into Hollywood. As studios exploited her image, Clara developed a defensive, often harsh demeanor. She became known for violent mood swings, lashing out at co-stars, directors, and anyone she felt was taking advantage of her. She could be sweet one moment and savage the next, a former colleague said, recalling how unpredictable Clara became as fame consumed her. Her personal life was a magnet for scandal. Gossip magazines painted her as wild and promiscuous, fueling Clara's paranoia. Feeling constantly attacked by the press and betrayed by those around her, she began pushing people away, sometimes with cruel words, other times by sabotaging relationships. Her trust issues made collaboration difficult, and soon, studios saw her as more trouble than she was worth. By her early 30s, Clara's career was essentially over. She withdrew from public life, battling mental health issues in isolation. While much of her cruelty was rooted in trauma, it didn't lessen the impact on those who tried and failed to support her. Clara Bow's story is a tragic reminder that sometimes the brightest stars burn out because they've been fighting invisible battles all along. As Clara Bow faded into obscurity, another starlet's life was cut tragically short, not by scandal, but by Hollywood's brutal neglect. Our final story is that of Jean Harlow, the platinum blonde bombshell whose soft looks hid a lifetime of sadness, pressure, and quiet cruelty shaped by those who controlled her every move. Jean Harlow, the tragic star. Known as the original blonde bombshell, Jean Harlow lit up the screen with her radiant smile and irresistible charm. But beneath the glamour was a young woman trapped by studio contracts, personal tragedies, and a suffocating mother who dictated every part of her life. Jean wasn't cruel by nature, but as pressure mounted, she became cold, distant, and often harsh to those closest to her. From the moment she entered Hollywood, Jean was molded by MGM Studios into the perfect sex symbol. Forced into provocative roles, dyed platinum blonde, and constantly scrutinized, Jean began to resent those around her. Friends described how she became increasingly withdrawn and impatient, snapping at assistants and isolating herself from co-stars. She built walls because everyone wanted a piece of her, one colleague recalled. Her personal life was marked by heartbreak. The sudden death of her husband, producer Paul Byrne, sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Rumors swirled, and Jean, already fragile, became colder, using sarcasm and emotional distance as armor. She reportedly became difficult on set, refusing to engage with cast members and showing little tolerance for mistakes. By the age of 26, Jean's health was in serious decline due to kidney failure, something MGM tried to hide from the public to keep her working. She continued filming until she physically couldn't anymore. When she died, Hollywood mourned the loss of its brightest star. But those who knew her mourned something else. The young woman who had been chewed up by fame and left hardened by a world that valued her image more than her humanity. Jean Harlow's legacy is one of beauty, tragedy, and a quiet cruelty born from survival in a system that offered no kindness in return. So, behind the beauty and fame, even legends had their dark sides. Which star surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this dive into Hollywood's secrets, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories from the shadows of fame.